How y'all doing? It's Preacher Man on me, and this is Smallville Reviews Mondays. This week is Season 2, Episode 13. What happens on this week's episode, Jonathan Kent gets framed for trying to kill Lionel Luthor. And what we find out is, by Clark and Pete investigating, we find out that the sheriff is the one that did this. And how we find this out is, toward the end of the episode, Clark and Pete's looking for the bartender that spiked Jonathan's drink. And they find him in the freezer with some dead fish, and they see a picture of the sheriff and the bartender together, and that puts two to two together. And the reason the sheriff is trying to kill Lionel Luthor is because Lionel Luthor made the sheriff get the names of the employee buyouts that Lex got to make LexCorp. That way he can buy LexCorp and own Lex Luthor's company. And he does this, and then he threatens the sheriff to keep him on because he wants to be able to keep doing this. And the sheriff said, "Don't threaten me," because it's a mistake. And even though Lionel Luthor still did this, this is why the sheriff shot him. Well, there's a whole bunch of people who are framed for this. Jonathan Kent's framed for the murder because him and Lionel Luthor had an argument when Jonathan Kent found out about the watch that Lionel Luthor gave Martha. And then Lex got blamed for it because Lex and Lionel had an argument as well. And then we find out that it's the sheriff. And Clark and Pete start looking for clues, and Clark finds this bullet and takes it to the sheriff. And before he knows that the sheriff's the one that framed his dead. And then he goes to try to find. He talks to the bartender before the bartender gets killed. And then he goes back and tries to find the bartender when he winds up missing, and this is when he finds him in the freezer. Well, what else has happened is Clark's trying to get Henry Small to represent his father. At first, Henry Small wouldn't want to do it because of his past with the Luthors, and that case that he prosecuted got an innocent guy put on death row and killed for no reason. And he ain't hadn't been the defense lawyer since. And Lana and Clark's finally able to convince him to do this, so he starts defending Jonathan Kent. And this is when we start finding out that the sheriff's the one that did this. And while Clark and Pete's looking, the sheriff shoots Pete's car, and Clark gets him out of there before it explodes. And that's what makes Lex Luthor find out that that Jonathan Kent really didn't do this, that somebody's trying to frame Jonathan Kent. And he goes to Clark and tells him this. And that's all that really happened on this week's episode. My question for y'all is, now that Lionel Luthor's been shot up, how do you think that's going to change his character? Because he has a big change in either this season or the next. How do y'all think that's going to happen? As always, Preacher Man, I'll be signing out. Guys, good, you guys. Run this time.